an unconstitutional hoax.
Aloha and welcome to a very sad day in Trust and Verify history. Today is the day that both of the show hosts were proven wrong. That's right, we were wrong. Our boy, our dark horse candidate, Pete Buttigieg, has thrown in the towel. But before we can get to that coverage, we got to introduce my friend, my partner, my co-host, Boogie Bumper. Oh, and by the way, I did notice somebody that I've been missing for a very long time. Sandra J is in the chat, but I digress. Aloha, Boogie. How's it going, brother?
Good, James. Good. It's good to be with you. Absolute pleasure once again on a Sunday night. Welcome, everyone, to the show, DLive, YouTube, and Twitch. If you haven't yet shared the show out, then please do. But if you don't, that's okay. I understand. I wouldn't either. You know, a couple of controversial characters. Well, not to be fair, James is the popular boy. I'm the kid. I'm the kid who shows up once a week. Who, like, his parents make him play with me. You know what I mean? Because we've been next door neighbours for a few years now. It's like, James, why don't you play with Boogie? And it's like, I don't want to. Nobody likes him. Nobody likes him. Why do I have to? It's like, okay. And it's like, just sits me down with the Xbox, and then he walks away and does something else. So that's what we're doing. You know, I don't know if we were wrong or not. Like, let me do this. I always put a little trapdoor in there. I always put a little caveat. I did say, like, I don't think he's going to win the nomination. You know, but I see him as like a dark horse, like somebody that the establishment would like to have as a puppet. You know what I mean? But the way he dropped out was very bizarre. And it's very sudden. But we're going to go over his announcement, James, because it could be. Because you know what? At the end of the day, when it's all said and done, do you know what I like most, James? Empty platitudes. You know, at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, these are the things that really matter. For those who are wondering about coronavirus, James and I have both agreed before the show that we're not going to bring up the coronavirus. And we actually spent like half an hour debating it before we went live. So we got it all out of our system because we see a number of things about it differently. You know, the government response, for example, we've both been coming at it from very different angles on our own show. And of course, James takes the more positive, optimistic view, and I take the more pessimistic view, as is generally the case. So maybe somewhere in the middle, you'll find something that, you know, makes sense to you. But I think, so we can say this, I think the one thing we agree on, which we were just talking about as the opening credits were going, is I think it's important to separate whatever you think the virus is and whatever you think of the politics surrounding it and whatever you think of the government response to it, whether you think it was adequate or inadequate, what you think of the virus, whether you think it's dangerous or whether you think it's nothing, whether you think it's the flu or whether you think it's something else, regardless of all that, what you have to do is separate what the virus is from the psychology of crowds reacting to it, because this is something that I've said on my show, something that James has said on his show. There's a difference between what the virus is and how people respond to it. And the response from people will make it real. Like, it will make, you can say it's a fear campaign, but the fear that people will display will make it real. And what I mean by that is it doesn't mean that everyone's going to start dropping dead. You look at the run-on in the supermarkets that is happening now. So now that's big news here in Australia. I first knew about this like a month ago, James, because I was covering it in Singapore, right? And what you need to understand about the Singaporean people is, you would know this, I'm sure, because you're Asian and I assume you can all speak telepathically to each other. I think that's how it works, isn't it? I'm not racist, by the way. So, no, all jokes aside. So the people of Singapore is a tiny, tiny, tiny little nation. It's basically a city-state, right? That's how small it is. And the people of it's essentially like a social fascist state. They are extremely strict with things like hygiene. So if you get caught with chewing gum on the street, you can get 10 lashes for that, like with physically
cane.
with a whip, right?
Yeah.
Graffiti is, you can get 10 years in prison for graffiti. It's that strict, right?
Mm-hmm.
The people of Singapore, though, have a very, very high level of trust for their government, which is almost mirrored. It's like disproportionate to what we have in the West. Like, we have a natural distrust of government. I think that's a fair thing to say. I think even Australia might be even a little more cynical than the United States. I think you have more partisan sort of hatred of each other, but we have more of a general apathetic view of government, like, oh, whatever, they're all liars, who gives a fuck, right? That's our baseline. So in Singapore, where they have a high level of trust for the government and they have a very, very strict social sort of fascist policy on hygiene and whatnot, when the government came out and said, don't panic, what did the citizens do? They went and they emptied the stores. They emptied the supermarkets. So if that's the reaction in a country that has a high level of trust for their government, what do you think the reaction is going to be in countries that have a low level of trust for their government when the government comes out and says, don't panic? What do you think it might be?
Hang on, I'm receiving a message right now from Singapore.
Me, ma. Nanu.
I got it. Yep. All right, we just put out the worldwide Asian message. Everybody calm down. Just try not to be Asian. Everybody just start practicing being less Asian and you will be fine. So,
excellent.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct on that. We were talking about that before. Is both on your show, on my show, together on shows. There's been lots of crossover pointing this fact out. Exactly what you just pointed out is that there has already been literal American cities, Australian cities, wiping out supermarkets for essentially what boils down to a cold at this point. Like, and again, no matter what you think about the virus itself, the panic level was created by the media because the stats don't back up that reaction. No, so again, it's manifesting itself. It doesn't matter whether this was as simple as a common cold or as serious as Ebola. What matters is the manifestation is happening due to what's that message that's out there in the ether, so to speak. So you're spot on.
Yeah, and I don't even just blame the media because, you know, this is something I think we agree on, but probably like what factor we agree on it too. I think one of the main problems was the mixed messaging. Yeah. So you had the World Health Organization saying this is going to be like, we're all basically going to die from it. At the same time, governments were saying, what the hell are you talking about? There's nothing to see here. You know, again, I put it down to economic reasons, political reasons, cynical reasons, which is generally where I fall back to. But for whatever reason, this is how I think, you know, if you want to call it conspiracy theories, this is how they start when there isn't sort of a uniform, understood message platform. And because governments were arguing with the WHO when 364 days of the year they say they agree with everything that WHO says, because you've got one doctor over here saying it's bad, another one over here saying it's nothing. We're seeing videos of, you know, fumigation runs in Chinese cities. They're just pumping fucking gas into buildings, and all the while it's like, you know, oh, well, there's nothing to see here. So that's how this starts, I think.
You were showing video of them welding motherfuckers into buildings. I mean, I talked about that on Pirate Radio.
What about the drones following people around, telling them to go home?
Go home. If not, we're going to shoot you from the air in a drone. I mean, they created a lot of panic by even that stuff. But I think this is an important point to talk about. Even though we're not talking about coronavirus, but we have to talk about the media because that's what we do on this show. Yeah, that's what we do on this show, though, is talk about these kinds of issues. And you have to ask yourself, if China can stop any message from getting out of its cyberspace it wants, why were those messages not being restricted? Why were we seeing videos of people claiming to be in Wuhan all over the internet? Why were these getting out? So you have to ask yourself, what was the goal to begin with? And we talked about that a long time ago, right at the very beginning. And I said, wait a minute, who really needed a financial reset here? Was it America or was it China? That would be China. Remember, China's the one that was devaluing its currency due to the trade deal. China was the
I
one
would say everyone.
experiencing-
I would say everyone needs
Well,
one at this point.
Yeah, well, everyone outside of America 3 weeks ago. I mean, there was a lot of financial pressures happening. So who needed a financial reset? It wasn't us. It was the Chinese. And then you can marry that fact up with why were these messages getting out of China? So, there's a lot to be said for that.
With the well, I can explain a couple of them. So with the drones flying around, that was actually put out by the Chinese police,
Right.
For a Chinese audience, and the way they presented it was, again, awful, dystopian to me. But in the world of China, where they're so far down the police state route, they were like, "Look, we're not even threatening people. We're just flying drones up to them and politely asking them to go back home and then chasing them home." There were other videos where the police put out where they were knocking down people's doors because they were tweeting things, or they were putting on Weibo, I think it's called, the Chinese social media platform. Is it Weibo? I think that's the one. And, they were saying things about the coronavirus, and they were knocking on the door. Imagine getting 4 or 5 armed guards knock on your door and say, "We don't appreciate what you were tweeting about the virus. It is disinformation. Please take it down immediately and issue a retraction. Otherwise, we'll throw you in prison." And, a lot of people at the time are saying, "Oh, well, that's China. That'll never happen here." And I'm like, well, you're fucking mad, because it already happens in Europe. They already do that shit in Europe. Exactly, they already send police around to people's doors if they tweet things and put stuff on Facebook in Europe. So
100% correct, 100% on spot. We've been talking, this show alone has been talking about this for years. We've been talking about this individually, together, on other shows of that exact fact. But there's good news on the horizon, because exactly on this show, as well as our individual shows, of course, again, Boogie from the pessimistic point of view, me from the optimistic point of view, was that I specifically said that there's a plan for social media. Calm down. Well, there's a breaking story which we're probably not going to cover for the rest of the show, but it highlights this fact that Paul Singer, a guy that was never Trump, fully on the Trump train, just bought a major stake in Twitter, enough to try to pressure out Jack Dorsey right before the election. So things are happening exactly as we said they were going to happen, because of these facts that we said. Something's got to give. And in America and in Australia, we tend to look for free market solutions. So the free market solution out there,
as long as he doesn't make it worse.
As long as he doesn't make it worse. But at this point, what can be worse? They're censoring the shit out of everybody. Everybody's seeing all kinds of weird shit happen on their Twitter feeds, including you just can't even use Twitter on your phone half the time. So, again, I digress. Somebody in America, more than any other country, really has to stand up to Europe, and that's the real point that I was trying to make.
Yeah, well, I agree with you generally. I mean, there's other things that Europe does fucking far better than America on, like, for example, data privacy. So they've put a lot of rules in place in the, like, I can't believe I'm even giving them a round of applause, to be honest with you. But they absolutely nailed Facebook, Twitter, and other social media platforms to the wall over the sharing of people's personal private data. And that's something that, we don't do here, and it's something that doesn't happen in the United States either. So, I guess, it's never just all one way. You know what I mean? It's never just all one way. Just like we say, not all Democrats are the unhinged, pink-haired, university types who don't know which hole to piss in, but apparently want Marxism. The same applies to conservatives and free speech, I'm afraid. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes with me personally now. Like, I'm getting a lot of notices on YouTube and Twitter and stuff to take down my videos. I know who's doing it. It's not fucking left-wingers.
Nope.
It's other conservatives. So
that's right.
You know what I mean? There's a guy who works for, there's a guy on the inner sanctum of Donald Trump, a guy named Peter Thiel, who everybody applauds as being the gay billionaire who supports Trump. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I get that. He's also one of the original funders of Facebook, and he runs a company called Palantir, which is at the forefront of stealing people's data on the internet. So, there's always a layer beneath belief.
We've tried to highlight this ourselves, is that, look, it's a fact, it's a reality that needs to change. But it is a fact that the reason all of this social media that you guys are clamoring for, stop the censorship, this is unfair, that's unfair. I don't know why even conservatives fell into the trap of nothing's for free, guys. So if they're offering you social media for free, there's a catch. The truth is that people weren't aware of the catch. But that's buyer beware stuff. I mean, there's billions of dollars. I've tried to highlight this over you and I, creating a social media platform, is that there's billions of dollars in your data, in your traffic. Why? For advertising purposes. That's the only reason there's billions of dollars in it. It's all about advertising, because it costs just to start up. We're not talking about how much invested in like companies like Amazon or Facebook or Twitter. We're talking about just to start up. You're talking about a $20 million investment just in the servers. That's just the hardware. That's not the internet. That's not the pipe space. That's not the software. That's not the management. That is literally only just purchasing the servers to just start up $20 million. So you start to understand that we're talking about major money in that advertising ability of collecting your data. So I think people need to understand that nothing's free. So if it's free, find the catch, because you're being fucked somewhere.
Freedom isn't free. It costs folks like you and me. If you don't pay your $1.05, who will? I know who will. Pete Buttigieg, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's do this. This might take up the whole rest of the show. I don't even know, because this is like, I've got other stuff, but this is the first announcement that he made after dropping out of the race. We were talking a bit before the show, like how bizarre it was, how sudden it was. Now, you said a few hours ago that he was on a TV show. Like, again, this is, you wonder why I'm cynical when it comes to politics. 3 hours ago, a politician goes on a TV show and says, "No, we've got all the numbers. We're absolutely going through to the end. We are going to win this." Okay.
Yeah. He was talking, I
Believe
think, to Chuck
politicians.
Todd. Yeah, he literally was talking like 3 hours before he suspended his campaign, saying how he knew all the numbers. We've got all the delegates figured out. We're going to go in and kick some ass on Super Tuesday. Like, this guy was literally like doing a campaign rally on national television 3 hours before he suspended his campaign.
Well, there you go. That's what trusting politics will get you. Politicians will get you looking like a fool. So here's the announcement. I haven't listened to any of this, but Pete has developed somewhat of a reputation, James, as being unbelievably the one most likely to use empty platitudes in a speech. And I know it's Sunday night, and I know a lot of people have got work tomorrow, but if you're at home tomorrow, now might be the time to break out the whiskey, I think, because we might play ourselves a little Pete Buttigieg drinking game here on Trust and Verify. How about every shallow, pointless, cynical platitude you hear come out of this guy's mouth in the next few minutes, you have yourself a little bit of Black Label. How about that?
Before you play this, did you see the clip of him and Obama side by side saying the exact same nonsensical platitudes? Holy shit.
Well, and that to me, like, I gave us collectively on Trust and Verify a little pat on the back when I saw that, because that's exactly what we were saying. Like, he is the Obama. He is the 08 version. He's the 2020 version of 08 Obama. Yep. Like, and there it was.
Yep.
Plain to see for everyone. So let's see what Pete's got to say for himself. The audio's bad on their end. It's not mine. Oh, no. Buttigieg. I thought they were chanting USA for a moment there. Almost forgot myself.
Forgot where you were.
Look at all the flags all of a sudden.
Flags to quit.
Sometimes the longest way around really is the shortest way home.
God, it's really quiet, isn't it?
Those microphones.
How about turn the mics on, Pete?
Here we are. In the last few years, America has faced enormous challenges. From an economy in transition to...
Can you even hear it?
Climate on the brink.
Yeah.
President sowing chaos and discord across the very country.
Chaos and discord from the president, James.
And for many Americans, these challenges...
I love how... Pause for a second.
Sure.
I love how he said, an economy in transition. Yeah, to good. What the fuck? I mean, it's like, we were transitioning from absolute shit. Nobody could fucking find a job to absolute fucking great. So why would he even highlight that? An economy in transition. Like, it doesn't even make sense. It's, again, an empty platitude.
I think he's talking about like going from low skilled labor to tech and that kind of thing. But like, I would say to Pete, with all due respect, don't you think you're in a better place now to be able to make that transition from low skilled labor? Like, because what we had before was a whole bunch of, like, we still have the student loan debt problem, right? That's an issue. But the people who have loan debt, what degrees were they paying for? They're not fucking robotics. They're not engineering degrees, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We're talking about people here who have like social studies and, you know, African studies and whatnot. A degree in African studies is not going to help you design a drone that will chase coronavirus infected people back into their home. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's the kind of jobs we need in the future, apparently.
So like so many others, I thought deeply about what I could do to make a difference, what I could do to make myself useful.
Useful.
And it was in that spirit, with your help, that a year ago, we launched our campaign for the American presidency. We began this unlikely journey with a staff of 4 in a cramped office.
Remember the good times,
right here
James?
in South Bend, Indiana, right down Washington Street. No biggie.
He wasn't even as entertaining as the other Democrats because, unlike other Democrats, I don't think he was having sex with his staffers. There was certainly no naked hair combing going on.
Email list, no personal fortune. Hardly anybody knew my name, and even fewer could pronounce it.
Oh, we knew who you were, though, Pete. We knew who you were right here on this little show. We followed you.
The South Bend showed everybody what to do. First name Mayor, last name Pete. So what I got.
First name Mayor, last name Pete. Oh, he's a fucking visionary. It's a nice podium, though. Give him that.
But by every conventional wisdom, by every historical measure, we were never supposed to get anywhere at all. And then, as I said, that roller coaster February night a few weeks
Roller
ago,
coaster,
I
take a drink.
shocked the nation. Along that way,
The night that shocked a nation, take a drink.
hope became an undeniable reality.
And now it's not again.
In a field in which more than 24.
Oh, God, he is long-winded, isn't he?
Yeah.
Senators and billionaires.
I'll tell you what, Pete, let's skip ahead here. How long does this go on for? This has got to be the longest concession speech in history, I think.
I think it's hilarious.
We got into this race in order to defeat the current president and in order to usher in a new kind of politics.
A new kind of politics,
And that
James.
meant guiding our
Wait,
campaign by the
I love that. We got into this to usher in a new kind of politics where a presentable, unknown man in a suit with no baggage on the federal level says empty platitudes like hope and change in the effort of winning the presidency. Like, no, we've already done that.
Yeah.
We've already seen that happen before. Like, that is not new. That is like that's old tricks.
values we like to call the rules of the road.
The rules of the road. There's another drink for you.
Respect.
Respect.
belonging,
Respect.
truth, teamwork.
Truth. Don't forget truth.
Truth. No, the truth.
Substance, discipline, excellence, and joy.
Joy.
Discipline, excellence, and joy, James.
Sounds like he's describing his S&M bedroom activities.
Today is a moment of truth.
Yeah.
After a year of going everywhere, meeting everyone, defying every expectation, seeking every vote,
Yeah. Yes.
truth is that the path has narrowed to a close.
Ah.
For our candidacy, if not for our cause. And another of those values is responsibility. And we have a responsibility to
Yeah.
consider the effect of remaining in this race any further.
Here we go.
Our goal has always been to help unify Americans to defeat Donald Trump and to
Here
win
we
the era
go.
for our values.
Okay. Well, you know what? We'll leave Mayor Pete there. So, you know, you were saying, you were asking before the show, James, do you reckon he was bought off? Again, I'm going to take the more cynical view. In moments like this, where it was so sudden, where there was, 3 hours ago he was talking about how he's going to be a great president, and then all of a sudden he gets out. In moments like this, I defer to scandal, like some kind of scandal, some kind of, a manila folder being pushed across the desk to Mayor Pete and say, just open that up and have a look, see what you think of that.
Yeah.
And then opening it up and there's photos fall out and printouts and like, okay, well, we're going to announce that we're not running anymore. Thank you very much. Thank you, team. Everyone go home, and then pack up your bags. You're out of there. I don't know. What do you think?
The question for me comes down to no matter what the leverage was, who did it? Was it Sanders, Bloomberg, or Biden? Because I think that's the top three that would do this. He was either promised something, bought off something, or someone with enough political influence to crush a story. So no matter what the leverage was, whether that was exactly what you're saying, to hide a scandal, keep a scandal out of the news, or just raw payments, dollars, promises of a future in the Democrat Party, maybe a promise to be looked at as a member of the cabinet, or even potentially a vice presidential run. Because again, other than this show, and I will have to say kudos to Boogie Bumper, other than this show, there was nobody show that said, oh, Pete's going to be the dark horse here. You watch what's going to happen, the trajectory here. So at the time, everybody was like, yeah, you guys are full of shit. By the way, he was at the top of those popularity charts. He was at the top of echelon playing with people, and he was correct in saying he had no business being there, which we already knew the fix was in, that this was the guy that was going to get there already from some kind of fixed position. So, marrying those things up, it's basically like whoever his handlers were, for whatever reason, all right, time to cut bait.
Time's up.
Yeah, it's very strange timing that it happened today, 2 days before Super Tuesday, which means that it was specifically to influence Super Tuesday's voting. Specifically. So, was it to help Joe Biden? Was it to help Bloomberg? Or was it to help Bernie Sanders? I think that's really
it wasn't
the
to help
question.
Sanders, that's for sure. we know they want to help Sanders.
Well, yeah, or to maybe not to help Sanders. I should have said maybe to hurt Sanders, but it was to affect the race. It was absolutely to affect Super Tuesday.
Could it have been because it came off the back? So I was trying to work through this. Like, I'm always going to try and look for the most reasonable explanation first, and then expand outwards in concentric circles, James.
Right.
Could it be something along the lines of, well, after the South Carolina, maybe he said to himself, or maybe people in the party said, let's see how you go in South Carolina. If you can't get on top of Joe Biden in South Carolina, then we can't have you, and I don't know where he ended up in the South Carolina vote, but he obviously didn't win it.
Right.
Joe Biden did. And now all of the corporate media is now, Joe's back. So, and remember, they were pushing that narrative that the first few states don't matter and South Carolina is the only one that matters. They've been saying that for about a month as well.
Yep.
So, because I think it's about 50% black population, South Carolina, or thereabouts. So, I think it's higher than other parts. Especially, it's definitely higher than fucking New Hampshire, put it that way.
Yep.
So, maybe that could that be the case? And then if you look at it too, Super Tuesday is a money pit, right? Like it's a hole. It's where money goes to die in politics. So do you think maybe after this South Carolina thing, they said, okay, look, we need to direct all of our money and all of our attention to the most viable candidate, even if it is Joe Biden, and even if maybe they don't care about Bloomberg because he's paying his own way anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I don't think that's accurate, only because all the money for Super Tuesday is already spent. That's already invested dollars. So, but you're right that, if Super Tuesday actually can create a financial suck, if you end up in the top three, you're kind of forced to stuff more money into the campaign at that point,
right,
to try to get across the finish line. But, to me, I think it smells directly of it. This was a move to help Biden. The question is, in that, again, in helping Biden, hurting Sanders, the fix has been in for Biden all along, in many regards to media and whatnot. You have people out there like Tom Steyer, who also incidentally dropped out, but that's no shock since he spent $300 million to get less than 1% of the vote. It's and even him, he said, I'm committed to spending all the cash possible to defeat Donald Trump, even after the way the Democrats treated you, even after your own party was laughing at you, belittling you, and calling you all kinds of fucking scumsucker on national television. You're still going to give them money? I mean, what kind of self-loathing people are you? But I digress. It's that I think this was to help Joe Biden, which, why do they want Biden in there? I'm not exactly sure, but
safe corporate guy,
Yeah.
safe corporate vote. And I think they know he'll lose, but it's all about limiting the damage, right? You got to limit the damage before 2024, because if you lose a couple more states to Donald Trump, then all of a sudden it's even harder to raise money for 2024. So they want the guy in there, the nice corporate guy who's business as usual. We're not going to do anything radical. We're definitely not Bernie Sanders over here. You know what I mean? Let's just keep a tight ship. Let's go through this. And then as soon as this election's over, we'll start building for 2024. Maybe they think with Biden, they can hold or flip a couple of senators in that area, like that South Carolina area. Maybe, you know what I mean? With Biden at the top of the ticket as opposed to a Bernie Sanders or a Pete Buttigieg. I don't know.
So
that would all be stuff that they would be working out the maths to, I think.
Yeah, so the argument is, and the argument I think you're making that maybe I should be more clear about as well, is that this is about the down ballot, that this is about the Congress, the House, and the Senate. And they think that Biden will give more draw to win those down ballot tickets in those districts that you're talking about. South Carolina, they want to beat Lindsey Graham. Alabama, they want to keep Doug Jones in there. The Georgia, those kinds of
Colorado.
Yeah. And Colorado's a big one because Donald Trump has pulled ahead in Colorado, which is amazing considering that they're basically the, left coast, alternative right there. So, I think that's really good numbers that are coming out for President Trump nationwide. So the down ballot has to be why they would want Biden more than they would want anybody else. Cause I think you're right that Pete Buttigieg doesn't do anything for the down ballot. I mean, it just doesn't. I mean, he's not even an exciting candidate, though.
No, he might be setting up a. Can he just transition right now directly to a Senate run, or is it too late for that?
It's too late for that. They can't get on the ballot anywhere. There's nowhere. Right. There's no state that any election people can get on the ballot. And that's that. They would have to literally violate every rule, and it would be shoved in the Americans' face that somebody, was forced in at the last minute. Now you could do a nationwide write-in campaign because write-ins are obviously available, but every state
it never works, does it?
No, and every state has specific deadlines for filing for national elections and for local elections, and all of those have passed in every state, which is why Bloomberg couldn't be on the ballot for the first three contests because he declared after those states had their deadlines. That's specifically why he wasn't on the ballot until Super Tuesday, because he just missed all of the deadlines. But now all of the states' deadlines have passed. So what are they going to be on? Fucking Hawaii? I mean, great. We can vote for her in Hawaii. Yay. I mean, come on.
You got to fight Tulsi for that seat anyway.
Yeah.
And I think she'd kick Pete Buttigieg's ass, by the way. Have you seen her doing those fitness workout videos? Oh, yeah. She can throw, man. Yeah. She can throw down.
Yep. She can. I love it. Someone in the chat, Moron Mama, says Joe Biden called Chris Wallace Chuck today. It was fucking great. I saw that. Chris was like, well, it's Chris. He's like, all right, Chuck. He's like, oh, it's Chris.
Did you see the story about the Nelson Mandela last week?
No, I don't think I did.
Oh, you didn't hear about this?
Oh, yeah. Wait, no, I did. Where Biden claims he got arrested or some shit.
Yeah. And he didn't even get arrested. He was asked to walk to a different part of the terminal in an airport or something away from his black co-workers. But then he protested and he was allowed to walk with his black co-workers. So literally nothing happened. And that turned into, I got arrested trying to see Nelson Mandela. Jesus. We care about the truth here. We care about the truth here at the Biden campaign. How about a little bit of optimism for our Democrat friends, James?
Okay.
I think you'll like this. Let's go to our first article tonight. You can defeat Trump in a landslide. Okay, I'm paying attention. My ears have pricked. You can promise voters something our narrow-minded president won't, James. Have a listen to this. This has got to be one of the most optimistic exercises in navel-gazing that I can ever recall reading in the New York Times. And I am a subscriber to the New York Times. I indulge in the New York Times. And this, by far, has to be probably about as bad as it gets. Listen to this. If this election turns out to be just between a self-proclaimed socialist and an undiagnosed sociopath, we will be in a terrible, terrible place as a country. Terrible, terrible. He actually wrote terrible twice. How do we prevent that? That's all I'm thinking about right now. My short answer is that the Democrats have to do something extraordinary. And here's a question for you, James. Don't you think that offering things like, I don't know, free abortions to trans women, don't you think that's extraordinary enough? What about offering free healthcare to illegal immigrants? Isn't that extraordinary enough? How about Elizabeth Warren saying a 9-year-old trans girl is going to choose my Department of Secretary head? Don't you, my education secretary? Don't you think that's extraordinary enough? Yeah. I think a lot of Democrats would be out there saying, no. We want less extraordinary, please. We just want a little bit more normal, if you can do that, if you can swing it. Yeah. Forge a national unity ticket, James, the likes of which they have never forged before. And that's true, even if Democrats nominate someone other than Bernie Sanders. What would this super ticket look like? So he's going to give us a rundown of the super ticket, James. Well, I suggest Sanders and Michael Bloomberg, who seems to be his most viable long-term challenger, lay it out this way. So then he writes the announcement for the DNC. Okay, like I said, this is quality navel-gazing. I want people to know that if I'm the Democratic nominee, these will be my cabinet choices. So this is Bernie. He is writing through, the personality of Sanders here. My team of rivals. I want Amy Klobuchar as my vice president. Her decency, and can I just give a little tip of the hat to Revenge of the Cis? A great line I heard. It was actually on Nightwave Radio from Mersh. Great line I heard. He said, Amy Klobuchar sounds like she's always about to cry. If you listen to her speak, but I want to be the nominee, and it's important, and we need to do things here.
She sounds
just like Trump would be like, "Shut up, bitch! Get the hell out of here." Could you meeting Iran? Could you please not maybe do the nuclear thing, please? Okay, please. Like she's always on the verge of bursting into tears.
She has one joke that she tells, and she still tells the joke in that kind of tone.
He called me a snow woman, and I said, Donald, how is your hair gonna stand up in a blizzard? Yeah, she's talented. Her decency, experience, and moderation will be greatly appreciated across America and particularly in the Midwest. Listen to this. I want Mike Bloomberg as my Secretary of the Treasury. What, is he going to put his own money in there? Okay, that sounds good. Our plans for addressing income inequality are actually not that far apart, and if we can blend them together, it will be great for the country and reassure markets. I want Joe Biden as my Secretary of State so he can go and meet Nelson Mandela again. But sir, Nelson Mandela's dead. No, he's not. Shut up. Do you want to go to prison? No one in our party knows the world better or has more credibility with our allies than Joe. I will ask Elizabeth Warren to serve as Health and Human Services Secretary, James. No one could bring more energy and intellect to the task of expanding healthcare for more Americans than Senator Warren. This is the one you're absolutely going to love the most. I want Kamala Harris for Attorney General.
Oh, my God.
Hey?
Oh, my God.
This is apparently how you make a Democratic landslide. She has the toughness and integrity needed to clean up the corrupt mess Donald Trump has created in our Justice Department. I would like Mayor Pete as Homeland Security Secretary.
Wow.
I would like Tom Steyer to head the new cabinet position, Secretary of National Infrastructure. We're going to rebuild America, not just a wall on the border with Mexico. And I'm asking Cory Booker, the former mayor of Newark, to become Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. Huh?
Wow.
Huh? How about that? There's your super ticket right there. Oh, incidentally, James, we have live right now Tom Steyer announcing that he's dropping out of the presidential campaign. I just thought we'd go to Tom very quickly. Live footage. He looks so natural up there, doesn't he? It's like one of the bros. The only thing you know what, to be fair, if he had done more shit like this, he probably would have been more popular. Wouldn't you have just loved if he had got on the microphone and said something like, "What's up, my niggas?" You just hear birds chirping in the room. Yo, I definitely ain't like that Michael Bloomberg. He a racist piece of shit. Yo, what's up, my nigga? Tom.
Always nice to see everyone out there.
There you go.
When you
I'm at a loss for words. What the fuck do I say after watching that shit?
Well, at least he's not pretending not to be white. That's what I kind of like about that. Always nice to see everybody at the show. What do you think about the super ticket, James?
I'm terrified. I'm absolutely petrified. like these people are, they're just proving how batshit crazy they are. That they think that it is identity politics is somehow good for America. They want people in positions that don't even make sense. And what the hell would you need a czar of infrastructure for? You already have them. They're called the transportation secretary. Build some shit. I mean, it's not that fucking hard. The hard comes from that Congress has to approve every fucking project in America. You want a federal dollar to spend on anything, it has to have congressional approval and authorization. So that it doesn't matter who you put in where on those kinds of issues for infrastructure. It is all about controlling the House and the Senate. And so, it's completely disingenuous that this is how they think things get done, though. It goes back to their whole philosophy of what they're saying. And I think it really bears unpacking, is to say, look, for the last 4 years, the Democrats have not been able to, quote unquote, come together, to bring the people together, no matter what. For 4 years, they have not been able to accept Donald Trump's win. Yet they run on the rhetoric that Democrats can unite America. Why would they possibly think that their victory would unite anybody? In fact, they haven't been able to literally just accept defeat from 4 years ago. So I don't even get the whole mentality that they have, that somehow they're projecting unity. And again, that was in the article, the unity ticket. Nobody's going to unify behind that. In fact, I think it'll unify Republicans to go grab their guns and start a civil fucking war. These people are the craziest of the bat.
The unity ticket, remember when they were asked on the debate stage, all 17 of them, or however many fucking it was at the time, would you give free healthcare to illegal immigrants? They all put their hand up. So, yeah, they unified against everybody else. You know what I mean? Against the overwhelming majority of the country. And it's even worse than that. This is not a new idea, right? And it takes on various forms and it's got a bad name, and I get that. But people more intelligent than you and I, James, and people more intelligent than our audience, because let's face it, that audience. Oh, shit, are we live? Oh, shit. We have the most intelligent audience. No, just kidding. People more intelligent than us have figured out thousands of years ago the only thing that really unites a nation is nationalism. They have the Democratic platform is now overtly against that. Like the idea of nationalism to them is toxic. So they have taken the only real thing that can unite people around some kind of banner, around some kind of standard. unless even see people will see this is where people bring up religion. No, that's not true, because religions fight against each other like inwardly all the time. Muslims fight Muslims, Catholics fight Protestants. Like that's happening. That's been happening forever. People will say ethnicity, and it's like, yeah, but that's not really true either, because within certain tribes there are different ethnicities, and then they end up fighting each other as well. The only thing that really unites people is the idea that, you know, whoever we are, our own individual differences aside, should the need come, we're all fighting for this, right? We're all on this team. We're all on this flag. We're all this part of this nation. We are brothers. We are sisters. That's the only thing that really gets people together when it matters. And that's the one thing that the Democrats have spent the last 20 years at least fighting against. So I don't know how they're going to unify, because there are a lot of Democrats who believe in nationalism. Right? There would be a lot of Democrats who wave the flag, love guns, you know, consider themselves America first and stuff. You know, they're ostracizing them while claiming to be the unifying party. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's plainly absurd.
They can't
and
even unify.
This is why they fought so hard, right? When Donald Trump was talking about nationalism, remember?
Yep.
When he just by uttering the word, James, that was enough to get CNN pundits on camera saying this is white supremacy.
Yep, 100%. They can't even unify the Democrat Party. Hello, Bernie Sanders. I mean, you had this was again. It points out their hypocrisy, their hubris, their absolute batshit craziness. Elizabeth Warren is on the stage, looks at Michael Bloomberg dead in the face, and calls him a fucking sexual perverted fucking piece of shit that has too much fucking money. But I'll support him if he gets the nominee. What does that say about you? What does that say about you? Is that you're going to sit there and basically call out this guy as one of the worst pieces of scum on the planet, but if he gets the nominee, you'll go ahead and work for him. What? What are you what message are you saying to America, including the Democrat?
Yep. And they can pay lip service to it occasionally, like they do. Like during the impeachment process, you'll remember Nancy Pelosi quoting fucking the founding fathers, quoting the Constitution. We do this for all Americans, but everybody knows it's shallow garbage, because, you know, in the same breath they'll say we're for all Americans, but we also want to put the rights of illegal immigrants ahead of you. So it's like, well, hang on, they're not Americans. What the hell are you talking about? You know what I mean?
Right.
And every country has their own flavour of this, especially Western countries. We got the people here in Australia who say that there's nothing inherently special about being an Australian, and it's like, oh, okay, so why should I elect you then?
Right.
Because I want to elect the people who think that there is something inherently special about being an Australian, because they'll treat the office with the respect that it requires, and their heart will be in the right place.
I think that is one of the special things about Trust and Verify. Let me pat ourselves on the back for a second. Is that I can come on to this show and say America is without a doubt the best country in the world, and then you can say,
fuck no. Are you forgetting about Australia?
And that is highlighting that exact point. Is that is exactly how this world is supposed to be. We are Americans. Fuck yeah, America, motherfuckers. We need to do everything we can to push it to the top of the list, and we respect Boogie for doing the exact same thing for Australia. That is the exact point of freedom, is to and nationalism. We're not saying, no, we need to go, since Australia doesn't want to suck our dick, we need to go beat them to death. That's not what we're saying at all. I mean, you know, we're going to try to do the best we can for America, and Boogie's going to try to do the best they can for Australia. And we're going to hope to come together on every issue we can in the middle and unite to go against the bad guys, whoever the bad guys, quote unquote, may be. Yep,
correct. And, you know, this is the thing, like, you know, I often get accused of being anti-American and stuff. I don't think that's fair. I think when that happens, people miss, you know, a lot of other things that I say. Like, so for example, the other day, I was talking about it on my show. We were talking about the entrepreneurial spirit of the United States. So, like, just to be quick, when I first started reading about the United States, I was about, 12 or 13, because I was a big book nerd and a history nerd. And of course, I started where all foreigners start, and that is with the Civil War. So I spent a good year or two just like invested in the Civil War, learning about all the characters about the Civil War, which is why, incidentally, people like my programs where I don't lie to people about, people like Robert E. Lee. And I tell the stories about Robert E. Lee. He wasn't just a Nazi who wanted slaves at all. He was actually, he was in the North who went back to Virginia to defend his state because it was aggressed against. So he was fighting for his state, right? And even the Northerners at the time said he was an absolute hero and a military genius.
Yep.
So,
and it highlights the fact of where the country was at the time. See, this is, again, it's actually a very good story to understand the story of Robert E. Lee, because if you understand that story, you will be able to really conceptualize what states' rights were. What the hell happened? We were supposed to resist federalism at all times, okay? It was a complete encroachment. Was it done for a very good reason? Maybe, likely, probably. That has nothing to do with learning the lessons of why states' rights matter. Is that you should be an independent state from the federal government in all ways that is not possible, and the federal government should be able to step in and correct literal human atrocities, okay? If it was purely over the slaves, I mean, that's, again, that's a myth as well, even though it was the overriding thing, but that was a good thing to do. But the fact that then after that, the federal government basically stole almost all your states' rights kind of puts it into perspective there that, wait a minute, this wasn't this overwhelming success that it really is portrayed to be.
Yeah, I mean, there were journalists at the time in the North who were saying, if you want to abolish slavery, this is not the way to do it. There's actually, you lobby government, you elect people in state houses that want to abolish slavery. You don't start a civil war, and they were thrown in prison by Abraham Lincoln. So, you know what I mean? It's always, they say history's written by the winners or whatever. But putting all that to one side, so I started reading about that, and then I started getting into so what makes this country what it is? And the entrepreneurial spirit, I think, is foundational. So in the formation of the United States, I know it wasn't all about tax, but tax was a factor in the rebellion. Taxation was seen as tyranny, right? That was seen as something a dictator would do, because the message is all about, hey, this is my business. This is my place. I will sell my stuff, and you stay the hell out of my life. And I think that's a vein that runs deep in, the United States psyche. Again, I could be wrong, but this is just the way it looks to me from my vantage point. So when I do things like, criticize politicians and stuff, when I criticize, the welfare state and whatnot, it's because, to me, it's coming from a place of, why are you fucking up what you have? Here was the one time in human history, this entrepreneurial flare-up of, rebellious spirit, right? The one time that a country has actually been founded on the principles of individual liberty from the bottom up instead of the top down. The one time that it's happened in human history. And you have millions and millions and millions of people trying to piss it away. And, I find stuff like that heartbreaking, if nothing else. Oh, Jesus, you don't know how good you've got it. You don't know how good you have it. And it's like you've forgotten who you are, a lot of people. So, when I'm critical and stuff, that's generally where it's coming from. It's coming from that kind of place. And as a nationalist, right, if you consider yourself to be a nationalist, well, part of the definition of being a nationalist is you want every country to be the best possible country that they can be, because that's what nationalism is, right? Yep. I think every country has a right to exist. Every people in every nation have a right to self-determination. And they have the absolute right to pursue, if I can use this, if I can steal an Americanism, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? They have the absolute right to pursue that to the nth degree wherever possible at all times, because that's what nationalism is. You can't be a nationalist for yourself and not a nationalist for everybody else. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. 99% of all the people everywhere are lying to themselves or don't realize how much they have fallen for the protection meme. We talk about this all the time, is that, look, let me give you an example of what I mean. Hong Kong capitalism from the 90s is completely different from American, Western, Australian capitalism of today. And most people that claim to be libertarians, conservatives, nationalists don't even have a concept of how far down the path you are mentally. When you take this comparison, it will show you. In Hong Kong, the price of a bottle of water fluctuates and is negotiable daily, hourly, minute by minute. Depends on relationships, depends on a lot of things. You go and none of your food prices even have price stickers on them. This is a complete capitalist society where they have been born and bred and raised that way, where you go up and you barter and you say, how much you want for this bag of rice? $50. Fuck you, I'll give you 20. And that's the start of the negotiation. And you figure out the price and then you go home with it. That would never even be tolerated in a country like America. In a country like America, even you, red hat, MAGA supporting people are the ones that are screaming about price gouging. Wait a minute. I thought you were capitalists. What the hell is price gouging? Because, see, you see it as someone, they're taking advantage during a tragedy. Hey, you're the fucking dumb shit that didn't stack the fucking water at your house. You're the dumb shit that wasn't prepared for this tragedy. But you're going to literally go out there and say, wait, this is price gouging, and attack that. Okay? So you have to understand how far down the path we are. Now, I'm not saying we could release Australia or America or England into a Hong Kong capitalist society tomorrow. What I'm saying is that
culture's different. Yeah.
We have to understand how far we've come to understand what direction we need to get back to, how we need to push down that path, head back towards much more freedom. And remember, you guys are pissed about the taxes we pay now. Our forefathers fought a fucking revolutionary war over about 1/10 of the taxation that we currently put up with. So, I mean, we've come a long way down that wrong path. And that's why you see my pin tweet, Boogie's tweets, they really do coincide, and you may not realize it. My pin tweet says, because of socialists wearing MAGA hats, I'm increasing the ways you can donate to me. Why? Because these are the same assholes running around on fucking Twitter, social media, other platforms saying, you're just a grifter. You're just taking money from people for doing nothing. Anybody can talk into a microphone. Well, okay, go do it, fuckstick. Go fucking put up your own fucking show and do it. If people want to donate to you for the work and effort that it takes to put on these productions, these shows, the equipment, everything that it takes, it's up to them. Why? Because they're fucking free. And you're out there trying to say they shouldn't be free to do that. See, people don't understand how far they've come from true freedom.
Yeah, and like just second to that, so you're covering the finance angle. Last week we had a very successful campaign, James, talking about the SJWs, the social justice warriors in red hats.
Yep.
So I put out the petition: Donald Trump should change his music to Macho Man, get rid of the crappy patriotic songs. I even worded the petition something along the lines of toxic patriotism, which is so obviously sarcastic, right?
Yep.
But a whole bunch of people, fuck you, needs to shut it down. This is unacceptable. And it's like, well, hang on. Who are the people who like to go around laughing at snowflakes? Who are the people that like to point at other people for getting easily offended by things? Like, at this point, you're no better. You're doing the exact same thing. So, it was a complete success and we had a great fucking time.
Right. But that's it. This is what people need to understand. Like that is absolutely it. We can't defeat our enemies by becoming them. It also goes into even what we're talking about with a lot of patriots, and you guys, especially in this audience, you are fucking pissed the fuck off, rightfully so, that we have not gotten to the prosecution arrest phase of a lot of these deep state cocksuckers, okay? Rightfully so. Having said that, we can't become the bad guys in order to be the good guys. It doesn't work that way. And everybody says, well, they did it. Well, yeah, because they're the bad guys. The bad guys fucking don't pay their fucking taxes on their drug money either. I mean, so what? Should we all become drug dealers? You have to try to understand that doing things the right way is difficult. But it's easy to be a criminal. You just put on a fucking mask and go down the bank and make whatever withdrawal you want. I mean, you have to understand.
I forget, somebody was floating some idea that Donald Trump should do X and Y and it was one of those grey area legal issues. Somebody did it on Twitter. And, you know, I quoted them or something, and I said, you know, like, why would you want to do that? That's a terrible idea. That's like, that runs counter to, like, you know, law and ethics and everything. And the response I got was because Obama did it. Why can't he do it if Obama did it? And I said, well, you know, at some point, if you're going to be the guy that drains the swamp, you can't just do what the fucking previous guy did. Maybe that's why. Like, we spoke about this, James, like years before we even did Trust and Verify. We would talk about this kind of stuff and say, you know, I'm very skeptical about, you know, indictments and people going to prison and stuff, and you're more optimistic, and that's fine, but that's not the point. We both agreed that if something was ever going to happen in that realm, it has to be done by the fucking book, because a vigilante cannot prosecute a vigilante.
That's
right? So just because Obama did it a certain way before doesn't mean that Trump now has a green light to do it. I mean, you can take that angle if you want, and other hardline people would, but then don't come back at me and talk about how you're the justice guy, because you're clearly not. You're the eye for an eye guy. Right? It's a different thing. Like, you cannot take the high road if you're doing the exact same thing that the person you're attacking does.
Right.
So simple as that.
That literally comes down to the whataboutism. That argument of, well, just because, well, what about them? Wait, you know, there is a degree where that's overplayed. Oh, that's whataboutism. No, it's not whataboutism. It's saying that your position is coming from a disingenuous, dishonest place. That's why I'm bringing it to your attention. Not trying to say that it defends my position. I'm saying that, hey, dipshit, you're coming from a place of dishonesty. We're coming from a place of honesty, and here's why. So, you know, there's a lot to be said here. Obviously, we can't unpack it all in one show and get to the root of it. But I think we've beat this subject to death.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And I think what this show is, since we took a little hiatus, James, this show has definitely morphed into something different, because I think we've done 2 items tonight.
Yeah, and
you know
what? I got to be honest with you. The chat room seems to love it. The people are saying they actually like when we just sit here and shoot the shit more than when we're constantly playing articles. So, hey, if you guys want more of this, let us know. If you don't want more of this, tell us to shut the fuck up and play the clips.
Beautiful. Well, let me do a couple here quickly back to back for you to get a response from you. What's the name of the woman running against Nancy? I think she's gorgeous, by the way. I'm just putting that out. Is it Deanna?
Deanna Lorraine, yes.
Deanna Lorraine. Okay. I don't know what she's like as a candidate, but she's very easy on the eye, so that's enough for me, and I appreciate that. So, sorry to be judgmental. At least it's positive. Listen to this. In Democratic Socialist Shahid Buttar, a leftist challenger to Nancy Pelosi emerges. Wouldn't this be the ultimate kick in the ass for the establishment of the DNC, James? Nancy Pelosi, the person who, like, for all intents and purposes, you may not agree with this, but I definitely think that this is the case. As far as the Democrats are concerned, to me, she is a moderate. Like, she is pro-big business, right?
And who, Nancy?
I think Nancy Pelosi.
Okay.
Pelosi. I think that she says, you know, I think she placates the social progressives with various things and various little statements. But let's be honest here, right? She's nearly 80 years old. She's probably a very old-fashioned little old lady kind of type, right? I don't think that she's actually as socially progressive as she makes out to be. And when it comes to matters of the economy, yes, she says that she wants more spending. Yes, that she says she wants more welfare and stuff. The healthcare for all, okay, you can put that in one particular tank, but she still passes legislation, well, tries to pass legislation that is very pro-big business, right, from time to time. Yeah. So I don't think that she's a radical by any stretch of the imagination, and if this doesn't prove it to you, then nothing will. I wasn't surprised when Shahid Buttar suggested meeting at Coffee to the People, an inconspicuous coffee shop in San Francisco's Haight District. Geez, wouldn't you hate to have a cafe in San Francisco now?
Oh, God, yes.
Wouldn't you just hate it?
Thank God I'm not
having to come
anymore.
out and hose the shit off the sidewalk at 6 a.m. Sandwiched in between a gentrified neighborhood up the hill, Cole Valley, and homeless camps in Golden Gate Park, the shop's populous name and unassuming vibe symbolize what could have been or what could be in a city that is torn between its counterculture roots and outrageous tech wealth. It also embodies the spirit of Buttar's campaign to unseat Rep. Nancy Pelosi. This is in Ceylon, by the way. So they are now, like, remember, this is how we first heard about Pete Buttigieg. Now, this is a little different because this is a primary race, and it's a primary race in a very progressive city. And you know what? When I was reading this earlier, I thought, this is the thing I missed. Because remember, we were talking about why would Nancy Pelosi back impeachment? Why would she back impeachment when she knows it's going to fail? Why would she back it knowing that it will flip the House back to the Republicans? And then all of a sudden it dawned on me, hang on a minute. She's got to cover her left flank in her seat, in her congressional district. Holy shit. Something I didn't even consider, and I'm beating myself for not noticing. This marks Bitar's second bid to represent California's 12th district, which doesn't make him a loser, by the way. Everybody loses the first time. That's how they get the ball rolling. That's how they get their name out there, and then they go again the next time. That's when they're a challenger, which Pelosi has held since 2013. Though this time, the level of interest and energy in Bitar's campaign is different. The Bitar campaign has received donations from 13,000 individuals and raised an estimated $500,000, which isn't bad in a congressional race, by the way, at this stage. So it's not bad at all. Driven by progressives and lefties who don't see Pelosi as the brave hero going toe-to-toe to Trump, Trump, pardon me. A narrative often suggested in the media. If he is successful in defeating her in the primary, he is all but guaranteed to win in the general election. The optics of a progressive left candidate unseating an establishment Democratic recall, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the New York representative who unseated Democratic caucus chair Joe Crowley via first besting him in the 2018 primary. Much of Bitar's campaign rhetoric involves contrasting himself with Pelosi, which is why I asked him when we met over coffee, why should San Francisco vote for you instead? He said this, and I quote, I really rooted in her long-standing service to conservative policies, Bitar said. Oh, yeah. Oh, they're coming for Nancy. They're coming for her big time. A lot of the people who might see her as a hero base that impression on headlines. Peering beyond the headlines reveals a different picture, James. The impeachment process that Nancy Pelosi brought, in addition to being a year late, affirmatively excluded Trump's corruption from the process. They're blaming Nancy for not getting rid of Donald Trump, ladies and gentlemen. It's focused entirely on a political crime inviting foreign interference in a US election, and that is a crime. What do you think? Do you think that Nancy Pelosi could get taken down by the left in her own seat? Do you think that's a possibility?
Nah, I doubt it. I seriously doubt that would actually happen. But that is exactly why
the conversation is interesting.
The conversation is interesting. But that's exactly why we hit on the point that this was about the Senate. Remember, the whole reason that you're exactly right, hit the nail on the head. She's got to protect her left flank. She's got to make sure she's not exposed in San Francisco in her district, both to protect against her own primarying and from the right as well, because Deanna is going to attack her on all these points as well. But it ultimately stems down to it gives her the answer to those arguments. All the answer from Nancy is, hey man, we impeached the guy. It was the Senate that let him free. So not only do you need to vote for me again in order to get it accomplished, now you have to make sure that we win the Senate as well. So the argument, that's the whole argument. We talked about that right at the beginning. We said, look, this is all about the Senate. They're going to blame it so that they have a way to just blame everybody that was if you want them impeached, you got to get rid of those guys in the Senate, because we already knew that Donald Trump is very, 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 very likely to win this next presidential election. We've predicted a lot of things. We see all the factors. The fact is that in the history of this country, the country has always voted its wallet, and its wallet is fat right now. And so we don't see a real path to getting rid of the president from the ballot. We see that as the Democrat strategy points came out. Why did we even pick Pete Buttigieg? Why were we even able to say, okay, here comes a dark horse from the left. Here comes Joe Biden to run to the rescue. Why are we able to read all those things? Because we knew it was always about the Senate. So we're watching that play out in real time.
100%. All right, let's go to our last item here, James. Let's skip ahead. Let's do the hammering. Very Christian hammering tonight.
Uh-oh. I caught me flat-footed.
What?
Stop the hammering.
I think this is absolutely delightful, James, on MSNBC, a network which will spend the majority of its time bashing evangelical Christians for the poor decisions they make in politics, for their backwards and bigoted views about things such as gay marriage and trans liberation, for example, now wants to speak to the evangelical Christians. Now we've got to appeal to the evangelical Christians. There must be a vote coming up. There must be an election. Have you heard about an election coming up in 2020?
No.
There must be some kind of election happening. All right, let's see what MSNBC thinks of you and your decisions.
Roland Martin is the host of Roland Martin Unfiltered. And while, Roland, the last time you were on the show, you paid homage to my Kenyan origins, you appear to be dressed in something a little more West African than East African right now.
Yeah, well, that outfit was made in Ghana. So was this one as well. So
This is very important stuff. Can we have more? Tell you what, because we're all Americans here. We're all Americans here, James. You know, I've got Kenyan heritage. This outfit comes from Ghana, by the way. This is West Africa, and I'm Kenyan. Can we have more celebration of our 13% of African DNA? Can we do that, please? Is that possible?
And I think you have roots in Ghana, right? You believe that's where your ancestors...
I was there in December. My DNA traces back to Sierra Leone.
Oh, okay. That's riveting stuff. I have my genetics are split between Germanic and Celtic, James. So interestingly enough, my family name, which I don't have a lot of connection to, though, you can trace the family name back. And they were part of an outlaw group in Scotland who tried to murder a king and then were eventually hunted down and wiped out in the Highlands. So that's fun, isn't it? Maybe I should come out tomorrow and wear a kilt on the show.
You gotta love the fact that just to point out and highlight that that's why Boogie's family and his ancestors ended up in Australia, because they were on the wrong fucking side. Okay.
So for those who get angry at me criticizing Donald Trump, let it be known that going after the ruler is basically part of my DNA. Like I can't even not do it. I must do it.
Stop it.
I must challenge the king. But I think it's around half Celtic and half Germanic, James, which means I get drunk but very efficiently. So you'll be pleased to know.
But I certainly enjoy my time there and look to visit some other African nations very soon.
Well, we appreciate you being with us this morning.
Okay.
You too, Jack. Jack, let's...
You too, Jack. Nobody cares about where Jack's from. Poor old Jack. He's just a boring white guy. Jack, you should have worn a fancy shirt, Jack. Then you could talk about your heritage.
What do they call him? The dashiki? He should be in a dashiki out there instead of that trench coat.
Hi, my name's Jack, and my family lineage is from England and Ireland. Shut up, you white supremacist! Who cares?
Let's talk about this. 80% of evangelicals support Trump. That's actually way lower than his support base amongst Republicans in general. But there are a lot of evangelicals who were never Republicans, who are not, a lot of the Iowa voting base, for instance, are white evangelicals who are Democrats.
You know, I've spoken about this before, James. Let me bounce something off you and see if this resonates. Let's see if this makes sense. I would wager that a whole bunch of evangelical Christians don't like Trump at all. But if given the option to vote for him or somebody who, again, wants to, liberate 9-year-old trans people, for some reason, I suspect they're probably going to hold their nose and go in and pull the lever for Donald Trump. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yes, 100% fair. I mean, look, I can't imagine, we've watched, look, I literally can't imagine any truly religious person voting for a single Democrat candidate that we have seen. Not one. And they've all of them have pushed things completely against the Christian outlook on life. I mean, no matter what it is, including things like segregation, like confiscation of wealth, transgender bathrooms, transgender.
What about the
youth?
divine spark in MS-13, by the way?
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine anyone truly that would fit into the evangelical title voting for anyone that is currently in the Democrat platform.
Right. What you see in that Christianity Today editorial that you referenced is a publication and an individual speaking to and for a group of white evangelicals who have always kind of been uncomfortable with Trump. Now, a whole subset of them.
Yeah, you know what? That's not fucking earth-shattering news to me.
No.
Oh, so what? This guy who literally covers his buildings in plated fucking gold, who has probably had sex with every playmate of the year for the last 35 fucking years. Oh, the devout Christians don't feel too comfortable with him. Oh, thanks for the news flash, bro. Jesus. How much are these people getting paid for these gigs, man?
Well,
unbelievable.
You'd be pleased to know that actually most of them make less than $30,000 a year. Most of them are starving writers that have to have side gigs all over the place. But believe it or not, most of the appearance people on television that appear all the time don't even get appearance fees. Most of them. There are some that do. There are some, but even that is a very low stipend. Especially when you consider something like, Sean Hannity maybe, I don't know what the number is. I'm just going to make one up. Sean Hannity may be getting $10 million a year, and every single person that comes on his show to make his show what it is, from the network, even the paid contributors make less than like $10,000 a year. Because that's what the fees are. They're pretty small.
Yeah. And I would just like to point out, James, that everybody says if you want to make money, do not get into media, and if you want to make money, especially don't get into alternative media. And just for your friends out there, the red hat wearing socialist, James, I would just like to, because we believe in full transparency here, the princely sum of $5 has been made between you and I tonight. That's $2.50 for me and $2.50 for you. So I just don't want anybody to get the wrong idea about how we're raking it in over here. You know what I mean? So I would literally make more on the street corner grifting than doing this stuff.
A little 3-card Monty. That's what we got to do. We are now going to change the format of the show. When you come in, we're going to be playing live 3-card Monty. Put in your lemons, and then that's how we'll give the lemons back to you. Okay? 3-card Monty from now on.
You've exposed my next. I've been working on that. Step right up. Follow the card. Fast hands, you got a fast eye. If you can put $1 down, you get $2 back. Step right up, folks, and follow the cards. Follow the cards. Don't look at a hand. Follow the cards.
Are in fact Democrats, but a lot of them are kind of what might be described as centrists or moderates, and some of them might have held their noses and voted for him in 2016. But if they continue to express this kind of frustration, like we saw in that Christianity Today editorial, there's a chance he might lose some of them. They could vote independent or third party, or some of them might even end up voting for Democrats.
Nah. No, they won't.
No way.
No, they won't. They won't vote at all, maybe. But, I mean, where are the evangelicals, James? Think about it. Are they in the states that just happen to vote fucking Republican by about 20 points? Right? So if a handful of them decide that they don't want to vote Donald Trump, again, just put your logic hat on for a second. Do you think it's going to make any difference whatsoever? This is what we talk about on this show a lot, right? It's not just good at, we're always getting a skewed view. We're always getting a skewed perspective when it comes to raw numbers. So one number that I've told people before, and this is a bit of a black pill, right? In 2024, there is going to be multiples and multiples and multiples of millions of people who have died during the Donald Trump presidency from old age, right?
Right.
Whether we like it or not, older people tend to vote Republican. Right. And they're going to be replaced by the largest youth vote in American history. More youth people, younger people, let's say under the age of 25, will be voting in 2024 than any election ever. And it's also going to be the highest youth vote, but it's also the highest ethnic minority vote at the same time, right?
Right.
Because of mass immigration. Yeah. So these are things that you have to, think about when you project forward into the future. But I always explain it, because at that point, most people go, oh my God, we're going to die, and jump out a window. It's like, no. But you have to always... But you still have to marry that up with, where are those votes? Where are they? Because if they're in places like California and New York primarily, then it's not going to make it's not going to make any difference at all. It might change congressional races a little bit. So it might become harder to win the House, but it's not going to change the Senate, and it's not going to change the presidency because it depends on where those people are. That's the main thing, right?
Right.
So, where are the evangelicals, James? Right. They're in red states.
And that's why it's really, 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 really important we vote our wallets and make sure that we're pointing out those kinds of things, because you're hitting the target. This is the truth of the matter. And I've talked about this 100 times before, but I'll talk about it one more time because you brought it up, is that when you're young, you turn, let's say, anywhere from you graduated high school and you're not going to college to you graduated college and you're ready. Whenever that time frame is for those people to start a family, you're really not paying attention to politics. Why? Because you're busy as shit trying to pay for your schooling and or pay for your family that you're trying to build. You're not getting any sleep because you're changing diapers. You're building your family. When you get to the age roughly between 30 to 35, depending on high school or college, 30 to 35 is when you really start to, okay, you've established your family, you're no longer changing the diapers, and now you're starting to worry about your child's future. When you start to worry about your child's future is when you start to pay attention to politics. When you start entry into paying politics, you're there. Now's the time where you're like, okay, wait a minute, we need to fix this or fix that. But you will that's that moment in time that will happen. And that's the exact age group you're talking about. That's why it's important now that we win on the economy, prove to the people that what we've been talking about our entire lives about supply side economics are what works. That when you go against supply side economics is when you will destroy your family's future. And that's why that's the most important overriding message, in my opinion.
Yep. And people point to, statistics and polls and surveys and say that the younger generation is now more conservative than the pre-World War II generation, right? But that's not true in numbers, right? Their views, of the ones that are conservative, their views are more conservative. And I put that down to like a section, this could be wrong, this is just my theory. I put that down to like a Matrix kind of effect, where, remember in the Matrix movie, right? When Agent Smith is talking to Morpheus and he says, this is the second version of the Matrix. The first one was actually made to be a utopia. Like, we gave you everything that you wanted, but he said your primitive brain couldn't process that because you define yourselves through suffering. So whole crops of, new humans were lost because they couldn't accept the programming. That's what I put that down to. A young person, like, I'm in my mid-30s. You're what, 72? Yep. So, the difference between when we went to school and what the young people are getting now is even a lot worse, right? Even between like sort of me, it's a hell of a lot more different for you than it was for me, and it's a hell of a lot more different for them than it was for me, right? If you follow my point here.
Yep.
So I put that down to they are getting fed such ridiculous shit that like there's something in them that just says, hang on, this is rubbish. Like this, I can't go along with this stuff, right? I cannot conform to this. But it's still like a minority of younger people. It might be like 30% or something. They're the best chance that we've got for the future generations, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there's a conservative revolution coming in the next 20 years, if you follow me.
Oh, yeah, correct. 100%. Real quick, just to point out, more on Mama in the chat says she's never seen The Matrix. Mama, do yourself a favor. Even my 70-year-old mom loves The Matrix. Go watch the movies. Pay attention. It is very well written. It's very well acted and put together. And this is literally where the red pill, blue pill kind of comes from. So that's where the whole meme even starts. It's like they really dive into it. And if you think about it from a political mind and a political point of view, you'll see how much that's a very impactful type of movie. And it's just a good movie just from an enjoyment, entertainment point of view.
Yep. And horrifying news, it turns out that James's mother is 70. That means he's older than his mother, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right. I didn't say she was 70. She's in her 70s, if I was not if I wasn't clear about that. But she was 5 when she had me. She was a child bride.
5. Very progressive. Very progressive.
So there is some sense of concern within the Trump camp looking forward.
No, there isn't.
In terms of shoring up their support among white evangelicals.
Roland, you are a man of faith, and one of the issues in the last several years has been Donald Trump has been viewed as an object of suspicion by some people of faith, although he seems to, there are enough video images of him doing things that look like a guy who is religious. How do Democrats who are trying to court, particularly the black religious vote, deal with this?
Again, the crazy part about this is, right, the last presidential candidate you had for the Republicans was a devout Christian, like granted a Mormon, and they've got their own problems, but he was a man of faith, right? If you want to put it that way. What was the response? I can't have this. This is disgusting. He's going to send us back to the Dark Ages. He wants to stone my gay children to death. Fuck this guy. Fuck this guy. We can't have this, right?
Right.
So, but because it suits them, because it suits the agenda now, all of a sudden, don't you think we need a real Christian? Don't you think we need a real hardline Christian candidate? Maybe Mike Pence should run. Huh?
What was the guy's name? Was it Torquemada? I think we need to bring Torquemada back. Yeah, wasn't he the guy that ran the Spanish Inquisition? That's how hardline we need to go. We need to get Torquemada back in here.
Fine. That's great. I think Trump represents more the Henry VIII version of Christianity. You know, like eating too many burgers.
Fuck you, I'll create my own church. Get the fuck out of here.
Exactly.
Well, first and foremost, look, I'm a Christian author. My wife is an ordained minister. And the reality is this here.
My wife is an ordained minister. I know this is an issue that, can touch a lot of nerves and it's a bit controversial, but depending on your view, like if you're more of a traditionalist versus, more of a progressive evangelical, some people would say there should not be any female ministers, right? And then you would have people who say they are devout Christians on television would say, well, you're going to burn in fucking hell for that. It's like, well, hang on. I thought we're all on the same team here. No, don't vote for the president.
White conservative evangelicals are Christian frauds.
Oh, did you hear that? Let's go through. Let's listen to that again. Remember, so he tells you what a good Christian he is. Okay. Now, don't be too judgy.
Yep.
Don't be too judgy.
Christian author. My wife is an ordained minister. And the reality is this here. White conservative evangelicals are Christian frauds.
Wow. I think we found Torquemada.
Conservative. Just
we found Torquemada. Yeah, well, that was Torquemada, right? Hey, you're not from Spain? Fuck you. In the Inquisition. We've literally just found Torquemada. He's right there. Roland Martin, folks. Roland Martin, where all of you that are white, if you're white and you're conservative and you're Christian, you're a fraud. Judge not, lest ye be judged, unless you're a white Christian conservative.
Roland. Roland, ride. White conservative evangelical Christians, James, are frauds. I just wonder now if, like, the earpiece starts rattling, because some producer is screaming down the thing, "We're trying to convert them, you idiot! We want them to vote for our guy."
That is a perfect. I was just thinking of Mel Brooks the other day, and you just made the perfect Mel Brooks sketch. We need Mel Brooks back because I think there would be no greater comedic mind to put together a history of the world part Democrat. And they could, oh my God, the stuff he could get from this political cycle, it would be an amazing show.
Let them all go to hell except Cave 76. Is that the song? That was their anthem of the cave.
Let me say it again. They're frauds. If you look at the moral majority,
frauds
from Jerry Falwell and the Pat Robertsons of the world, and all we heard from them since the late 70s and 80s, character, values, morals, and all those things.
Yep.
Yet what they did is they embraced Donald Trump, who is immoral, has no values, has no principles, and frankly is a fake Christian. Okay.
Yep, I can feel that one because you're worse. How does it feel? How does it feel? you as an option, you as a voting option were so bad, that the evangelical Christian conservative frauds, James, would rather throw their money behind somebody who has probably read more doctor's notices checking for STDs than he has Bible verses. Like, that's how bad you were as an option. Doesn't it feel good, huh? You're in the right. That the light of the Lord shine upon you. Eh? Yeah, right. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Okay, so
Rolling.
just cut to the chase here. And so black evangelicals see right through this.
Oh!
Is that why more blacks are supporting Donald Trump than any other Republican since the Civil War times? Is that why? Because you can see right through this. You have X-ray. It's X-ray Christian vision.
He's also speaking on behalf of all black evangelicals, which I love.
You got
which is fantastic, right?
I thought that was Reverend Sharpton's job. Is he trying to replace Sharpton? Is that what we're watching? Maybe this is just a political coup so that Roland Martin can be the new Reverend Al Sharpton.
Well, maybe the problem with Al Sharpton is he keeps going on these shows wearing, the boring English clothes. Maybe if he got himself a nice dress from Ghana or something, all of a sudden, hey, let's bring Al on.
Okay, we have always seen through this. Remember, it was white conservative evangelicals who held up and supported Jim Crow and who used the.
What?
Is that true?
Rewriting history.
Yeah, I always thought it was the segregationists, the Democrats mostly, who were behind segregation laws. Is that not true?
Oh,
have I missed something?
No, you didn't miss anything. Roland did, though. Roland's trying to rewrite that history book.
Yeah, right. I know. I know that it was actually the quote unquote conservative Christians of times gone past. Sort of in the centuries gone by, which were actually the first to fight for and abolish slavery. Not just in the United States, but in England as well. It was actually the more atheist Whig types that wanted to keep it. Right.
What's even funnier is that you sparked my brain right there with what the comment that you started with was that he literally, by trying to rewrite history, is actually going against the overriding Democrat point about the big switch. So which is it, Roland? Was there a big switch, or was it always the Republicans? Wait, I'm confused. You can't have both. He's literally, this is how Democrats twist and rewrite history, is that they can't even get which side of an argument they're on.
Bible to endorse slavery. And so what you now have are individuals who only care about two things. White conservative evangelicals care about two things. They can't stand gay people and they can't stand abortion.
Hang on. Let me go first. Let me do this one first, please. I'll go. Teacher, wait a minute. So is this guy who is a self-proclaimed Christian author who is true to the word now saying that Christians are frauds if they don't agree with abortion? Wow. Look at the lengths they're going to. This is unbelievable to me. I consider myself a Christian, but I always say I'm not a particularly good one. But even I'm not that bad to know, if a Christian is against abortion, that makes kind of total sense to me, because of what birth is and stuff.
The problem is the school of ministry that the class on theology that this guy went to, they thought that Herod was the good guy in that whole chapter there. So that's the problem here. They're on the side of Herod.
Yeah, I think when that lesson was taking place about abortion at the theological school, the Bible study group that this guy was going to, I think they were installing a transgender toilet. So they missed out on that lesson plan.
And so all they care about are federal judges who are going to drive home their agenda, and that's why they suck up to Trump.
And I would just ask, okay, so what? Like, what's your, like, if you can take on the role of Roland for me, James, you're saying to me, the only thing that the evangelicals care about is Donald Trump is installing judges to fundamentally shift the nature of the nation for generations to come in order to make it more closely aligned with their particular Christian view. And I would say, okay, so what? What?
Sounds good to me. Yep.
People are allowed to vote for that, aren't they? Like, aren't they allowed?
I think that's what freedom is. I think that might be a textbook definition of freedom.
Yeah. So you haven't made the case, you haven't made a strong enough case against that. If they're only voting for that one particular issue, again, so here's the rundown. Like, so this is what Roland is in his position of power. Roland. In his position of power, he says that conservative Christians are frauds, one, because they don't believe in gay marriage, and two, because they don't believe in abortion. So that's funny enough. But they're also frauds because they voted for Donald Trump because he has sex with Playboy playmates and covers his buildings in gold. Therefore, you shouldn't vote for him. But then I would say, well, your option was worse. That's why they voted for him. Now, on top of that, they're only apparently voting for one issue, and you still can't beat them. You still can't figure it out. Like, you're not very good at this, Roland. Right? And so after realizing that he cannot defeat people who are, one, only voting for one issue, and two, supporting a very, very bad candidate, which is apparently must have just been better than the candidate they were putting forward, how does he hope to wrest this slide? How does he hope to bring them back to the bosom of, you know, empathetic Christianity, James? By calling them frauds.
By judging
insulting them.
Insulting them and telling them that, how dare you, now shut the fuck up and get behind me. What? I'm sorry, has that ever worked in the history of the Bible? Now, forget about modern history. I just want to know where this guy, when was the one?
Get behind thee, Satan. That's the only time that I think. So, get behind thee, Roland, you pathetic white evangelical conservative frauds who don't believe in abortion, who vote for a Playboy, and who don't understand that you're all going to burn in hell because of it. The black guys get it, and they've got fancy shirts apparently, but you white guys, you don't understand it all. There's your hammering.
Stop the hammering.
There you have it, folks. Get behind me, Satan. Have fun with that one. It appears that the chat room loved the show. We're going to continue on with another show next week, provided all our schedules work out. Thanks for being here tonight. Thanks for all you do for both Boogie and us. Thank you for the $2.50. We will throw some lemons back at you as soon as we get to that threshold. I think Boogie will announce when we're out. Remember, we're jackpotting.
Tell you what.
Go ahead.
They were very generous today. Thank you so much for the tips, guys. We'll throw in, I'll open the chest right now. I'll throw in a little sauce, a little juice, and we'll open the chest tonight. Thank you so much.
There you go. We hit the jackpot, and then we will start a new jackpot next week. So thanks for being here. If you want to follow him, you can follow him at Boogie Bumper. If you want to follow me, you can follow me at Real Person PLTCS on every platform, all over the place. We're everywhere, and if we're not there, there's other people spreading us out. I think tonight the show was on Clout Hub. We don't even know what the hell Clout Hub is yet, so we will get there. Thanks for being here, and we will see you guys next week. Aloha. Everybody have a great night. I don't even have this. Wait, what? I'm screwing this up. I don't even have the outro ready. We'll just go with this. There you go. There. Just look at there you go. Just look.